Hello and welcome to the latest Leaders with Ambition podcast. And today I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Samantha Keane. Samantha is restructuring partner at EY for UK and Ireland for the strategy and transactions area. And it is going to be such an interesting podcast today, which will see Samantha take us from her career when she, on a chance encounter with a friend at a milk round, joined a Big Four, starting in audit, quite quickly finding that that wasn't her passion. She didn't really enjoy looking back as much. She much preferred looking forward and being involved in businesses, finding her passion within restructuring and insolvency, and then really developing and driving her career forward to the partner that she is today. It's been interesting as well because Samantha is an incredibly hard worker. And I think always someone that really dedicates herself to not only the job that she's doing, but also her team and the people that work alongside her. And people are very important to Samantha. They've played a big part in her journey. She came third in the JIEB exams, which, again, for those people that sit those exams, they know how hard they are. But it also opened up so many possibilities and lots of doors for Samantha. So we'll explore how it's always best to put your best foot forward and to take these opportunities with both hands. Samantha's worked historically in a very male-dominated environment, and there's been challenges with that along the way. So we'll discuss how she managed to face those off. And also, I think one of the things that Samantha's done incredibly well is raise a family whilst also having a partnership career. So lots for us to delve into today. But without further ado, Samantha, over to you to bring your career history to life for us.
Oh, thank you very much, Nikki, and it's a delight to be with you today. So, my career began a long time ago. In 1989, I joined what was then PW as a trainee accountant in the audit department, as you said, and quite quickly found that it wasn't for me. I just wasn't cut out to be an auditor, but felt I wanted to continue in my career and at least get the chartered accountancy qualification, and then decide what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So after a couple of years or so, I became exam qualified, but not my training contract hadn't expired, hadn't finished. So I needed to fill my time in a different way. So I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to go on a couple of secondments. One was to the forensics team, which was fascinating. And then the second one was to corporate recovery. And it was there that, as you say, I really found my passion, would you imagine, for corporate recovery and for insolvency, which was an area which I had never considered, never thought would be something that would be of interest to me at all. But actually what I loved about it was the commerciality and the ability to, go into situations and, effectively to do whatever you can to either turn them around or indeed to, save jobs, or indeed to, realise the assets as best as you were able in order to actually repay the creditors as much as possible. So very much sort of in the moment and forward looking, as rather than, as you say, I found that when I was auditing, clients weren't interested particularly. They just wanted to get the audit out of the way as soon as possible and quickly as possible. And I preferred to be much more in the present and actually forward looking in terms of my working with clients, many of whom were in a pretty distressed state.
And how did you go about really understanding the business? And I know you obviously were learning things, but I think you mentioned a couple of mentors along the way that have really helped you to understand not just the job that you were doing, but as you mentioned there were some people that were in distressed state, their businesses were in distressed state, and it's a very emotional period of time as well, isn't it, for people?
Yes, absolutely. Particularly for the directors, and I was working a lot with some middle market businesses, so it was very personal there for them. So yes, I remember on my very first case, actually, it was a huge case. It's called Atlantic Computer Systems, and I was very, very junior, hadn't really got a clue what I was doing. And the senior manager at the time told me, all I want you to do is to, sort of take accountability and responsibility and make a decision and actually file note it. Make sure you file note all your decisions, the circumstances surrounding it, why you made the decision you made, And if it turns out to be wrong later on, nobody's going to criticize you for, and as long as the decision was sensible on the circumstances as they did at the time, nobody's going to criticize you. If you don't file note it, or if you've made a stupid decision based on those circumstances, then, clearly this isn't going to be for you. So that sort of empowerment was fantastic. I found that I really enjoyed, that ability to have the freedom at a pretty junior age.
And that's unusual, though, Samantha, isn't it? So you obviously had a manager, a leader at the time that you felt really believed in you.
Yes, I think I was very fortunate. I mean, I did work in a regional office. I worked in the Windsor office of Pricewaterhouse. At that point, it was pre-merger with Coopers. It was the early 90s then. And we were a very small team. And so I worked directly with the sort of senior manager, and actually often directly with the partner. I was at a very, sort of junior age, really. I was able to be coached and mentored by some senior people in the organisation. So I did learn quickly. And I think one of the other things that really benefited me was, the partner often used to take me, out with him to marketing lunches and dinners and things like that. Which was, again, a fantastic way to sort of, learn, build my network, understand how to, act and react, and the types of conversation you needed to have in those sort of business environments. So it was hugely, hugely valuable. And yes, very, very grateful to the partner in particular that I was working with for pretty well 8 or 9 years.
Yes, a lot of trust had been built up over that period of time, I would imagine. And do you think the exposure and the experience that you had, as you say, in the Windsor office, because it was a regional based office, almost helped accelerate you? Because you wouldn't have always necessarily have had that if you were based in in London or one of the head offices?
Yeah, I think for sure. Absolutely. I'm sure that really assisted me. Whilst I wasn't necessarily working on the larger cases, I was getting more responsibility and, leading my own engagements, as I said, working often directly with the partner at a junior manager level, which was a fantastic experience. Yeah.
And you touched on the networking piece there as well. So, it's very important, isn't it, in your industry for the networks to happen and to be built. You from what you said there, you started at actually relatively young stage in your career. Would you recommend that to people then, to start as soon as possible?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, for sure. Interestingly enough, some of the people that I was introduced to and worked with at that point in time, I still know today, either as friends because they're retired, or effectively. Well, in fact, they're all pretty well coming to the ends of their careers, but a lot of them have stayed with me throughout my career, and and therefore have been work providers for me throughout my career as well. So, the earlier you start to build your network, particularly if you start to engage with individuals at your level. I mean, these people that I was being introduced to were much more senior to me. But if you will grow through your career at the same rate, hopefully, as they are growing through their careers, and you start to, you build that referral network for business moving forward. I think it's vitally important.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think also to find your sounding board and to find your trusted advisors and that are in different fields as well is incredibly important. So to grow trust does help to have that longevity of relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can't have any business relationship or indeed any relationship without a firm basis of trust. So actually spending time getting to know individuals, being interested in them, I think it's really important to sort of build that base. And then actually, when you're working together and you're in the trenches and, not everything goes right all the time, it's sometimes really difficult. Actually, you've got relationships that you can, fall back on, that will, and, that you've built over time, and that trust will sort of, help to carry you through.
I love that. And your career started to develop, as we say, you were working in the Windsor office doing some cases, but then you started to see your personal development and professional development come through, didn't you?
Yes, I did. But interestingly, I then got married, and I mean that was in 1992, and found very strangely that some of the people who had really sponsored me were suddenly expecting me to take a step back, and I think I was being I think the expectation was that I was going to leave and have children, and that would be the end of my sort of ambition. And I didn't find that was for me at all. So interestingly, one of the individuals who I actually joined PW with on the same day. He subsequently has become a partner at PwC. So we were tracking each other, and then he was getting opportunities that I wasn't. And I was thinking, what's going on here? But needless to say, a couple of years later, very sadly, I ended up getting divorced. And it was not an easy time for me personally in my mid-20s. So I decided to take some time out. And I remember going to see the same partner and saying, "Look, I need to hand in my notice because I want to take some time out to go traveling and just really work out what it is that I want to do with my life and my career." And he very kindly said, "Well, I'm not accepting your resignation. Take a sabbatical, and make sure you come back." So it was
what a wise man.
It was a really. Yeah, he was an incredible sponsor of mine, actually. And he was, I never dreamed that I could take a sabbatical and take time out like that.
Yeah.
So I did. And I took just short of 6 months, actually, traveling through Africa, and spent time just really thinking, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I came back deciding that I wanted to be an insolvency practitioner and I wanted to be a partner. I came back very firmly with those two things in my head. So in order to be a partner, I needed to be an insolvency practitioner to be able to take appointments and to be licensed. And that's when I decided, right, I'm going to do my joint insolvency examinations, my JIEB, which, as you say, at that point, we still are notoriously difficult.
Very hard, aren't they?
That pass rate's ridiculous. So I decided, okay, I'm going to dedicate a year of my life to just doing this. I'm really going to focus on it, and because I'm not going to do it again. If I don't get them, that's it. I'm done. So but in the meantime, I've met the second Mr. Keane. We started to see each other, and during that point, I got my exams, which was great, and I also found that my career had started to open up in terms of I was given the opportunity to go on secondment, and I went on secondment to NatWest, actually, for a period of about just over a year, about 14 months or so. And during that time, then decided that actually wanted to, for personal reasons, move down to the Isle of Wight, which is where my now husband lived and his businesses were located. And so I felt I needed to move from what was then, what had become PricewaterhouseCoopers, to a more regional firm based in Southampton. So I moved to Grant Thornton. So in January 2000, started off with Grant Thornton in Southampton and moved to the Isle of Wight.
Amazing. And I think it's just fascinating. One, that, you had this career-defining moment when you decided that it was time for you to take some time out so you could really think about what you wanted from your career. And I think that's an incredibly brave move to do, but also a really thoughtful way of thinking about your career. And most people just carry on, don't they? It's like that proverbial, duck with their head above the water. But you made this really careful decision. And also the fact that the partners saw that it's something in you and recognized that time out was what you needed, not to leave. And then you came back with this vigor and renewed energy and real focus. And even to the fact that you then go, right, well, this is my personal reasons. I'm going to live in the Isle of Wight. So I now need to look at a firm that can help support from where you were based. So lots of very careful decision-making going on here, Samantha.
Yes,
I feel like it at the time.
I didn't know. It all felt a bit haphazard. And, I certainly hadn't planned any of it. That's good. But I guess that has been a feature of my career when I look at it, is that, I haven't just focused. I've always had ambition. I have. I've always wanted to, as I said, I've always wanted to sort of, be the best that I could be at whatever level I was. So I've always worked hard. It sort of didn't feel as if I was planning anything. It felt all a bit haphazard,
Yeah.
to be fair, at the time. And when I look back at my career, I don't think it doesn't feel as if I have really done anything other than take opportunities as they've arisen. But I think that even though I've been ambitious, and I've always wanted to be the best that I could be at whatever level I was, and I've always worked hard.
Yeah.
I have always, had an eye to what else I want outside of my business life. So, sort of having a good home relationship, having a family. I knew I always wanted to have a family. That was key to me. So that was all.
It was about this time, wasn't it, that you were living in the Isle of Wight, and you were working towards your partnership as well, weren't you? And then you decided this was, everything. There's lots of stress going on. Let's stick a family in there as well.
Yeah, by that time I was sort of, in my very early 30s, and I just thought, gosh, I quite like to have a couple of children, so I probably need to get on with it. So I found out that I was pregnant as I was just beginning to go through the partnership process. So I thought, oh gosh, I really, really, bearing in mind this was 2002, it would have been. And I just thought, actually, I really don't ever want to feel that I've either been successful in the partnership or process or not been successful because I'm pregnant.
Yeah,
that was an important thing for me. So me being successful in the partnership process actually was important for two other people. First of all, my ultimate boss in restructuring, he would need to know, and secondly, my immediate boss, who was going to who was going to move into a different role, and I was going to take on the Southampton leadership of the Southampton office. And so this pregnancy was obviously going to impact both of them. Yeah. So I did tell both of them when I realised that I was pregnant, and I just said, look, please don't say anything. I just want to get through this process feeling that I've done it on my own merit and not being biased one way or another by my pregnancy. And to their credit, I have never had any indication or that either of them sort of broke or breached their promise to me that they would keep it to themselves. So I was successful. So I ended up getting the partnership in the January and a baby, my first in April, and add to the mix. We ended up we put it all in the wrong order, and we got married in the previous December. So
a very stressful few months for you. I love that. How did it feel when you got your partnership? How did you feel? Because this is something that you said a few years earlier. You'd said, this is what I'm going to do. This is now my path. Did you feel, I'm here, I've achieved this? Or were you more thinking, you think about the baby coming imminently, what were you thinking, what's next and how you can keep developing your career?
So excited. To make partner, it had been, when I joined Grant Thornton, I had joined with the, very clear intention that I wanted to make partner within 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And the firm were aware of that, and they were incredibly supportive, actually, and really supported me through that period to prepare for partnership. So that was fantastic. But I think that at that point I was actually, so focused. When I came back after maternity, I only had 4 months off, and I felt very focused on trying to make everything work. I was, a brand new partner, the only female restructuring partner, actually, as well, the only partner in that office, leading the restructuring team. So it was quite a lot of responsibility. Again, at a relatively young age, in terms of the fact that I was, a very, very junior partner. And so I that was enough for me at that point. I knew that I just wanted to make a success of it. And I felt I also wanted to have my family, my second child, but felt that I needed to have a full year, a financial year between the two children. So my second child came along, James, my boy, when in 2006, February of 2006. So I did get my full financial year between the two of them.
Good planning. I love it.
And then I found that I had to make a different decision.
Yeah.
Because, as I mentioned, I was a sort of, a sort of sole partner, dealing with the sort of quite a large geographical area from the Southampton office, from an insolvency, full service in corporate insolvency perspective. And I was finding that, you're getting a phone call from the bank at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and they're wanting to know whether or not they should be paying the wages on Monday morning. And you ended up, sort of obviously working with the team over the weekend. And it was very difficult with two, babies, two very young children. And I found that I didn't want that. I had an hour and a half commute as it was. I had to get to the office because I was living on the Isle of Wight and the office was in Southampton, and with the ferry and everything, it's typically, an hour and a half. And so it was just another sort of burden to really. So at that point, I made another decision. And I was fortunate insofar as I was approached by the firm to see if I would take on building a national team doing solvent liquidation, members voluntary liquidation work, and exit management work, which so undertaking these appointments on behalf of the whole firm, and just building a specialist team to be able to deal with that, because they're pretty high risk, because you've got live stakeholders at the end of the day, but live shareholders, you've got tax as well, and it's a different environment to be working in than an insolvency environment. So after much deliberation, I decided to go for that and build that. Part of me was worried and sad to be leaving sort of the insolvent cut and thrust of what was then sort of trading administrations, trading receiverships, which I just loved. But I felt that actually, in order to balance the home life that I wanted, I was going to need to go for something that was just, a bit more sort of visible in terms of the planning horizon, and that I could manage actually, and not have to work the weekends at least.
And that is a really great decision for you to make as well. It's still giving you the opportunity to develop in a professional basis, but as you say, your family are really important to you as well, and making sure that you're able to dedicate time to them. So I think, a really balanced decision as always, Samantha.
Well, yes. I mean, you look back and you think, gosh, I should have spent more time with the children, obviously. You always do. But
I don't want you anymore. That's what I found with mine. Yeah.
They're now 21 and 18, so they've far. But I do think that really, when I look back, as I said, I miss that sort of cut and thrust of the insolvency world.
Yeah.
But actually, I learned different skills, and I learned how to build a business, from scratch. And I had a plan in place to sort of build the business over a period of about 3 years, including building the team, obviously as well. And that was a real experience in and of itself. And then during that time, I was approached by a very, now a very close friend and a great partner from EY. And she herself had just been promoted as a partner to lead the restructuring team within EY. I needed somebody to lead the sub team within restructuring that dealt very much with the area that I was dealing with, so solvent liquidations and sort of exit route work. Yeah. And so she approached me to see whether or not I would be interested in joining. And it was literally, during that first year of building that business. And I can remember so clearly just saying to her, actually, this is going to be the biggest mistake of my career, I'm sure, but actually, no, I'm not ready to do that. Yeah. I feel I want to see if I can build this business within Grant Thornton, and I'm not ready to come across. And bless her, she very kindly and generously said, "Well, the job's yours when you want it." And you think, "Oh, that's really nice. That's lovely." Yes, right. But in actual fact, 2 years later or so, once I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve within Grant Thornton, I felt, yeah, actually now the time is right. And I went and made sure that I bumped into her at a women's insolvency networking event, which I knew she went to, and I always used to go to as well. It was an annual event. And I remember Liz just turning around to me and saying, "Are you ready yet?" Come on. And I'm going, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So that was that. So I joined EY in October of 2010.
And you've had a fabulous career at EY as well. I mean, you've obviously um, been a partner. You also stepped into a COO role, and this played incredibly well to your skills, but also some more of your passions. Because people, you love working with people, you love seeing people develop, don't you? And then you had this opportunity to be able to pull all of your skills together to enable that to happen, although some of it was during the very challenging time of COVID.
Yes, it was. So that's right. I mean, I spent 5 years leading the laser team, the liquidations and strategic exit routes team in EY, and had an amazing time with that team. It was a much larger team than I'd previously led. So again, and it was about building a business. We were, my remit was to really go in and sort of double the size of the business and to refocus it more onto the liquidations and strategic exit routes over because we were so busy given the financial crisis in 2008 that actually a number of the team had been moved onto that. So it took about 5 years to sort of achieve that, and then I felt then that actually I was done. The team needed to be led by somebody else. There was another great partner who, was up and coming, and he needed some leadership responsibility, and it was an obvious next step for him. And I quite frankly, felt that the time was right for me to move on. As I said, for me, this was about building businesses, and I'd done what I came to do. So I started to just socialize the fact with sort of the senior, leadership in strategy and transactions that I was looking for another challenge, something else, and we had a change of managing partner. I'm in strategy and transactions, and I had got to know him over the previous year or so, and he very kindly gave me the opportunity to become the chief operating officer for UK and Ireland strategy and transactions team, which was just a phenomenal business and a huge, huge privilege to be able to do that. And as you say, I mean, in an operations role, it's really everything on the supply side, from recruitment of individuals all the way through, as well as obviously looking at the financial and reporting and all the rest of it. So
amazing opportunity, Samantha. I mean, gosh, she must have just been again thinking, this is not, have I planned this? This is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic opportunity, and I mean, there is a side story to it actually. And I never ever thought that I would ever have the opportunity or be able to do a role like that. But I was initially approached by the managing partner to see if I would be interested in taking on the talent role for strategy and transactions, because, right, as you've rightly said, people are my passion, and the development of individuals is really important to me. And then through various over the next sort of week or so after he'd offered me that job, and I remember saying to him, "Oh, can I think about it? Can I think about it? Let's take 48 hours or so just to think about it." And then I was going through that. Oh, can I do this? This is
imposter syndrome kicking in here.
Can I do this? And I thought, oh no, I can do this. So but during this time, there were some other moves that were happening in the leadership of some of the business areas, which meant that the individual that was going to take on the COO role was actually going to take on a different role, which meant the COO role was becoming free. And so the managing partner very kindly decided to rethink who was going to do what in his team, offered me the COO role, and I immediately just said, yes. I think I've got my head in the right place, that I could operate at that level. And then I thought, oh, what have I taken on?
What am I doing? Fabulous. So you talk about, we talked about the COVID period of time, and that was a huge challenge, wasn't it, for firms? And you had to do a lot of real structured hands-on work to ensure people were able to cope and come through the other side.
Yes, and again, it was an incredibly challenging period, but actually it was also fascinating and and quite an exciting period in a way, because I mean, everything literally overnight was turned on its head, and the way that we ran our business was turned on its head. The economy was, we're just in unprecedented times. It's well worn, but absolutely true, particularly in a transactions environment. And the tap pretty well switched off overnight. It was quite bizarre. So and actually, just a month or so before lockdown, the partner that was had taken on the talent role was retiring from the partnership. He'd handed in his notice, so that I had temporarily taken on the talent role. So I was doing 2 roles at that point, just as COVID hit, and of course I ended up actually holding those roles for both together for about 18 months. So that was an incredibly stressful time, and we all as a leadership team worked exceptionally long hours, really sort of trying to focus and do the right thing for our clients, but also absolutely our people. Spending a lot of time just trying to work out how can we best support individuals working from home, those with families, those without families, those in bed sits. It was quite a difficult time. Yeah.
How did you also cope then? Because you must have had one of your children must have been GCSE younger. So you also, not only are you trying to keep 2 roles together, really find solutions to help this business move forward, as you were saying, the firm move forward. You do have a family, and there was a lot of pressures put on everybody during those periods of time, weren't there?
Yes, that's right. So my daughter was going through her A levels at the time. So she'd just started her lower 6 for her A levels, and my son was he was obviously he was younger, so he was coming through, well, not quite into his GCSEs, but yeah. So poor Grace, she ended up really having her final years blighted for her schooling. But I found, I found it quite, very, very tough in many, many respects. The great thing was that I was at home with the children, so even though you were working long hours, you were able to go to go back into the house and see the kids, and I say back into the house because I soon found out very quickly that my husband and I could not share a study. It was not working. Then like 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, when it was clear that it wasn't just going to be 2 or 3 weeks. I was going to, to make sure that peace reigned in our household.
I moved to the garden.
I moved to the garden, so I'm in the chalet, which is where I've stayed ever since. Whenever I went home now, my office is in the chalet at the bottom of the garden. So it's worked very well having that distance from home. It's been great.
It helps, doesn't it? It's interesting. And we touched on earlier on some of the challenges that you faced in your career as being a female in a very male-dominated area. And I think you said to me at times, you've been the only woman in the room, and that can be challenging. How have you managed to overcome that? And how do you now put your hand down to help other women come up? Because I know you're a great believer in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess I'm fortunate insofar as I am an extrovert. I'm so naturally, whilst it's quite intimidating often, even as an extrovert going into a room full of men, I do, I can do it more readily than those who are less comfortable in that. So that's been a benefit for me. But I do think that there is something around. Well, I always used to try and find that I used to try and get to events earlier rather than later, so that you're not going necessarily into a room full of people and then standing there thinking, gosh, if you go earlier rather than later, people tend to come to you. So I found that was helpful. I also found that actually being the only or one of very, very few women in the team, and in a very small environment in insolvency, you were remembered. I mean, people remembered who you were. And so as a consequence, people would come over and make an effort with you. So the one thing I do say to women is, if you are the only individual or one of very few, don't worry about it.
Own it.
Absolutely, lean into it and use it, because you will be remembered. That will benefit you, and actually, it will help you to network and to build your network as well. So it's not easy. It's never easy. But having said that, I do think there is something about trying to build your confidence up by recognizing that you have a right to be in that room. And just as much right as anybody else there. And why should you feel difficult about that? That's not your problem.
Yeah, I love that. And you believe very heavily in mentoring and mentorship, don't you? And I know that's something that, again, that's benefited you in your career, but you do make sure that you offer that to everybody, not just females, but you do support a lot of females coming through, don't you, into their roles?
Yes, yes, I do. I mean, I've been very fortunate and privileged to be able to do two things really. I had the opportunity to become an executive coach, so I have done some formal training in it, which I have found hugely useful actually. But it's always been my passion to sort of look to sort of optimize potential in people or maximize their potential. So, helping individuals prepare for promotion, whether or not that's partnership promotion or coming through to director, or indeed more junior members of the team. I do find that women in particular tend not to push themselves forward for promotion, and I've always felt that actually it's not a question of pushing yourself forward. It's a question of understanding what it is that you want and then just articulating it, because nobody's going to articulate it for you. So for men and women in my team, where I've seen potential, I do say to people, I do tap them on the shoulder. When are you thinking of promotion? What are you doing? When are you thinking? And I know that has made a difference to just help individuals think, oh, if she thinks I can do it, maybe I can do it. And that's just delightful at my age to see individuals, come through the organisation to partner, who I've known, since they were sort of analysts and executives and coming through. So it's absolutely superb. That's a real joy actually. So I love that. I love my role.
And we touched on imposter syndrome as well before. And as I say, I think people will be really surprised to hear that you have suffered, although I don't know many people that don't. Has that held you back at all? Or is it something that you're just aware of, and maybe even more through your executive coaching that you've become aware of how to help other people with that?
Yes, I mean, I have, and I hate to say it, but I do suffer from that. There are times when I feel really intimidated. I mean, I mentioned earlier the fact that actually, first of all, like, can I really do this talent role? Then when I got into the COO role, there were times when I was, at the beginning, one of the only woman around the table. With men, I didn't know, and I only knew one of the individuals well around the table, and that was quite intimidating, because they're looking to you for sort of leadership on certain aspects, and certainly managing certain matters as well. I think that again it comes back to just understanding, well, if others think I can do this, then I should also feel that I can do this. And I mean, personally, I know that I'm never going to get rid of that sort of that chimp on my shoulder, that little old voice in my head telling me that are you really sure about this? But I think that also makes me who I am, and it probably pushes me to be more diligent. It probably pushes me to work a bit harder, which might not be the best thing, but it seems to have worked for me in the past.
That's great. And I think, as you were saying, sometimes there's a lot of pressure when you are the only woman in a room as well, because you're carrying not just what you need to do and develop, but the weight of the world of other women that you want to support and help move forward. So it's a lot to take on board, but I think you obviously have done it incredibly well. And you have also been a big part of the IPA as well, haven't you? And was that something that you felt you wanted to do to give back to the industry?
Yes, it was actually. So I mean, I hold my practicing certificate with the ICAW, but I'm licensed through the Insolvency Practitioners Association, the IPA. And so back in, again, 2010, I felt I wanted to, at that point, I was a partner, I was leaving GT, I was looking to move to EY. And at that point, I was wanting to, I felt I could offer something to the finance committee. So I became a member of the finance committee and really enjoyed that, and became the vice chair and chair of that. And then from then, I quite enjoyed being on the board. So I was elected onto the board, onto the Council of Insolvency Practitioners, as it was then. And then gradually sort of ended up being elected to become the deputy vice president, and I had my presidential year last year, actually, in 2002, 2003. So I'm now the past president, and really have enjoyed that. Used my year actually as raising the profile of equity, diversity, and inclusion. We held through the IPA our first ever ED&I conference, and it was really well received. Again, I was just really pleased to be able to help to sponsor something and to raise awareness of the profession for diverse individuals, not just women.
Yeah,
because it's hugely important that we actually also look to attract Black and other ethnic minority individuals into the profession, as well as supporting women.
Yeah, that's great, and lovely that, as you say, because you've got so much free time, Samantha. Of course, you've got time to do all of this as well, which I love. And what would you say the challenges facing partners like yourself at the moment in firms?
Well, I mean, it's not easy for any of us. I think we have faced so much uncertainty, in the economy and the geopolitical arena as well. All of which has impacted, certainly the transactions sector, which is where I focus, and so it's not been easy. In EY ourselves, we've also been in the press, a fair amount with what's known as the Everest transaction. So that's obviously had an impact. But having said that, I do feel there's still so much opportunity out there. Whenever there's uncertainty, I mean that actually builds opportunity for us in restructuring, sure. And we are, we've seen big uplift in sort of liquidations work in the smaller and mid-sized market. Now that's coming through into restructuring work up into the larger organisations as well, and we're seeing quite a lot of turnarounds and restructuring, and the use of restructuring plans and various other methods to rescue and turn around organisations, as well as clearly to unfortunately, particularly in the retail sector at the moment, is facing its own troubles. Not easy. I certainly see still a lot of opportunity for restructuring. Coming through, and I do think that the transactions market, whilst there's some green shoots coming, I think it's going to be a little bit longer before we get back to any degree of stability, particularly through this election year.
Yeah, that's a problem as well, isn't it? There's so much upheaval going to be happening over the next few months, not just in the UK, in lots of different locations with elections going on as well. Yeah. But if you could give me a date and time when things will improve, that would be amazing.
I can do that. Sorry, Nikki.
And what about your highlights then? What would you say have been your career highlights? Because there's so many that you've shared today. It's been lovely to hear.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, clearly making partner is, I think, in any individual's career, that's got to be it. And also making equity partner. So I started off as a salary partner, and then 2-3 years later became equity. So that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Joining back into the Big Four as a partner was a huge highlight for me. I felt I'd sort of come full circle, which I was really proud of. and then actually the COO role. Doing the COO role, which I've held for 7.5 years. I came out of role last September, and that was an incredible privilege. I worked with some amazing people. I learned so much every single day. The strategy and transactions business is a fantastically interesting and challenging business. It's and it's so resilient in many respects, and complex, hugely complex business. So getting your head around that and helping the partners and our people to be the best that they can be, and actually delivering for our clients has just been a huge.
Yeah, fantastic. And challenges, would you say it's been more business or personal challenges that you've faced then throughout your career?
Well, both. I mean, there have been times when clearly, we've touched on some of them, in terms of my early career, sort of in my 20s, when I was sort of, going through the divorce and one thing or another. That was a hugely challenging time for me personally.
Yeah.
The challenges in terms of, whilst the COO role has been one of my absolute highlights, it's
hard work, I imagine.
Hard work, and there have been some very difficult decisions that we had to take during COVID times and before and since then, which impact people. And many respects I'd had training in that in my restructuring days, but nonetheless not easy when individuals who are impacted. So yeah, again, you sort of you take it in your stride. There are fantastic people around to support. And actually, for me, I've always learned, consultation,
yeah.
Talking about what's going on with the relevant people, obviously the appropriate people in the business, not feeling that you're alone, but actually absolutely working as part of a team has been critical for me and for I think. The managing partner of Strategy and Transactions did a fantastic job of creating a high-performing team culture, and was skilled in doing that, and absolutely led, I think, to us to be market leading in Strategy and Transactions over the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's been superb.
Amazing to be part of that. And what about words of wisdom that you would give? Because I find it fascinating that, I know a bit about your younger life, and that you wanted to be a microbiologist. So it's a little bit of a change. What words of wisdom would you give to Samantha when she was thinking about microbiology?
Well, I guess what I did was, take opportunities. Opportunities present themselves. Keep your eyes open and your mind open, because those opportunities come, and they might come from left field, and take them. Don't be afraid to take risks every now and then. But again, just I suppose consult with people who you trust, who care for you and you care for, and take advice, but don't be afraid to take risks. And I would also say, make choices. Don't compromise. If you, for me, it was I felt that I needed to work. I needed my partnership. I needed that in order to be able to be a better mum, a better wife, and a better partner. But I would definitely say, make sure that you don't feel you're compromising. Make sure that you make active choices, and then make the active choices happen.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, Samantha, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Loads of takeaways there. I think don't be afraid. Definitely take opportunities and choices. And I think what you've done incredibly well is remain your authentic self throughout your entire career. And I think that's something that we should all take away from the conversation today. So thank you so much. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikki.